I haven't actually done this before filming wise, but I'm going to give it a go because I know a few of you are struggling and I've crocheted for years, so I'm hoping that it helps you. So main thing to remember, and I think what I've learned over the years, is the way that they show you in certain videos to hold the yarn and to hold your hook, it varies for everybody. So don't be afraid to change it up a bit. So we've got to do this chain to begin with. So if you make a slip knot by crossing over your yarn and then pulling your loop through, so you've got that loop on there, and then put that on your 4mm hook. You then want to hold your working yarn on the left, and then you've got your short tail on the right, and make sure you've got some sort of tail there, because you'll need to wind that in when you finished your project. You don't want your whole thing to come unravelled. So from here, first step done, you've got your slip knot on the hook. Okay, so we've got our slip knot on the hook, as you can see there. I'm desperately trying to keep it focused properly for you, but it's really difficult to do, I'm sorry. You'll have to let me know in the comments if you can't actually see it properly, and I'll see what I can adjust. So one thing I've learned from crocheting is that everyone holds things differently. There is no right or wrong way to do it. So a lot of people will, hold like this and just be able to move it with one hand. I don't do it like that. I use both of my hands with mine, which makes it a bit slower, but a bit easier to follow. So we've got our slip knot on the hook, and we want to do these chains. So I've got my working yarn on the left, in between these two fingers, my thumb and my index finger. And then I've got the tail in between my thumb and my middle finger. For a chain, I will wrap over, and then I will pass that piece here into the left, and then pull through, and then pass back. And that's one done. Wrap over, pinch here, 2, pass back, 3, pass back, 4, pass back, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So I'll go to 25, and when I get to 25, which is what the book says, I will start the next video. One thing I forgot to say in the last video with making your chains, and something that's really important when you're crocheting, is your tension. And it's something that when I first started, I didn't really listen to. But if you're ending up with skew squares at the moment, which are thicker in one place and thinner in the others, it could be a lot to do with your tension. So when you are putting those chains onto your hook, make sure they are all at the same tightness and they are all the same size. It should all look really uniform and equal. Don't, just as an example here, I could pull one really tight and I could wrap it over really tight like that and pull one through, really, really squeeze it. And then the next one I could go really loose over like this, and I could pull that through, and then we end up with, I don't know if you can see that there. So we've got a really tight stitch there and a really loose one, and that will affect your final work. So don't do that. Okay, so we've now got our 25 stitches, and I've just worked out how to focus my camera. Woohoo! So this is our foundation row of chain stitches. We now need to move on to row 1. If you look here, that stitch there is our first chain from the hook. We do not want to stitch into that because the chain will fall apart. The instructions say to DC into the second chain from hook. So we want to move down one and we want to go into that next one. So I'm just trying to move these apart here. If you can see, there's a V there and there's a slight gap just in there. Can you see that hole? We want our hook to go in there. So we will turn the hook and we will go in here. The second one, in here. Go in through and then pick up that yarn and pull it through to here. And then again, I'm passing back between my other fingers, looping over, the same process as before, and then pulling through. And that is your first stitch completed. You can see here now, we've got a big gap here. So we know we've already got a stitch in that one. We've already done that one. We want to move on to the one below it. So that's our first stitch, and we need to do 24 here because we've skipped the first one. So we've done this one in here where this big hole is. We'll now go into the one below it. We're going to go in here, go in through, pull that through, loop over, and pull it through. And there's your second stitch. And again, you can see your big hole here now. So we've done that one. Your third one along, we're going to go in here. Number 3. Number 4. Number 5. So it should start to look like this along the bottom now. We've got our 5 stitches here, and we need to carry all the way along so we get to 24. Make sure you are only putting 1 DC in each stitch, otherwise you will end up with extra stitches. So we've got 5, and I'll go along with you. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. We're at the end. So now we've got our first row complete as well. It's upside down, it should be that way. And by now, our short tail from before here and our working yarn should be back on the same side. The first instruction for this row is to chain 1. So keeping it as it was, don't turn it yet. Wrap over, pinch, pull through, pass back. And that's just like the original chains that we did on that first foundation chain row. From there, you can turn everything around. So we're here, and just turn it around. Pass it over the other way, because we want to go back along the other end of the row. So everything is going to look slightly different now, because we've got that first row there, which looks different to the chain row. So this is where I find people could slip up and get confused about where to go next. Essentially, and I'm trying to hold this so you can see it, your hook is going to go into the first chain from the stitch. If you can see a hole there, that is where we're going to go. We're going to go in through that gap there. I know that there's a gap underneath, but that is our foundation row. If you can hear my stomach rumbling, I really do apologise. We don't want to go into that hole. We want to go to the next one above it, which is there. If you lift that up slightly, you can see the hole. And we want to capture, if you turn it so you're facing down and you can see on top of it, you can see these V's here. We want to make sure we grab both of these stitches when we're pulling the yarn through. Otherwise it will change the lookout of how everything looks. Okay, here we go. So we're going to go into that hole that I mentioned. So we're going in on this one. If you then turn it over to see the top, you can see that I've got the V on my hook. We then want to grab that yarn and pull it through the hole, like so. And then we're going to wrap over and pull through. And there we've done our first stitch of the second row. Again, the next one is not that gap down here. We want the one above it. So we're going in here. We're making sure we grab the V. There's 2 loops on there of that stitch. So if you can see the V here, there's 2 there. We want both of those. Loop over, pull through, loop over, pull through, and you've done your second stitch. Make sure when you're doing the row to count your stitches as you go along. You know that you need 24 on each row, so if you get to the end and you haven't counted 24, you know you've done wrong. Sorry, my stomach again. So third one, in here, grabbing that V, pulling through, looping over, pulling through. So that's 3. In, pull through, over, pull through. 4. In, pull through, loop over. 5. So I've just gone all the way to the end of row 2, and it looks like that on the back. And we're going to do exactly the same as before and add that extra chain on the end, loop over, pinch, pull through, pass back, and then turn over again like the last time. And if you hold it out, it will curl up, don't worry. This is your front now. You know the front of your square because your short tail of non-working yarn is on the left, always. So this is the front of your work, and this is the back of your work. And they do both look slightly different.